Any year? Yeah. Which which grade?
Like second to fourth.
10th and 11th sprinkled in.
Yeah, maybe next year.
What's the oldest you can be and still trick or treat?
As long as you're dressed up.
Doesn't matter.
No.
I was gonna say 16.
I had to stop at 6.
I want to stop at 7.
I was born.
Oh, you're terrible. You're terrible.
All the moisturizer.
I think Matt said what was your quote about the ending of the book?
It made up for the rest of it.
The ending made up for the rest.
It was fun. It was very good.
What'd you like about it?
Roz the Destroyer's, I like that.
So you're talking like the whole riot scene in Harlem and all that
Yeah,
kind of, okay. Over hopefully next couple of days, things that I would expect people are going to maybe have questions or try to figure out some significance, importance with, whether it be understanding the book or things that might kind of start to go into synthesis essay and all that kind of stuff. Certainly, you have the riot scene at the end. Roz and a spear, certainly come together. I mean, that'd be pretty cool imagery to kind of see take place. But people usually want to focus on that scene. You have Clifton and the Sambo doll.
That was weird.
Reinhardt chapter with the glasses and hat. So a lot of times people go, okay, something happened. Not sure what. And then, not obviously in any particular order here as well, but then the meeting with Jack and Eyeball kind of going, plop, coming out. Any other scenes or moments off the top of your head you can think of where you're unsure, want to talk about, need to kind of try to figure this out?
I don't know if it's in the epilogue, but when he's in the quicksand, and there's people talking to him.
Like the dream?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah, so you're talking about Dream where Norton, Bledsoe, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's like after the riot, and then there's the whole Dream scene. Yeah, that one is weird. Anything else? Okay. Where do you want to start? What'd you say, Michelle?
Riot scene.
Riot scene?
Start
I think so.
I was going to see if we could fit stuff in, but I guess I'll just redo. All right. Harlem Riot. What in the heck is going on? Like, in what way, like, why riot kind of take place? Because you have a fair amount of chaos taking place at this point. What are going to be our main folks involved in this part? Obviously, Tim's going to be one. Roz. Roz. With your sources that you picked up last week, you have a speech by a guy named Marcus Garvey. Roz is generally considered to be an allusion to Marcus Garvey. A push did Marcus Garvey come on at all? Marcus Garvey's from Jamaica. When Tim first shows up in New York, this is way back in chapter 8, he comes up from the subway. He looks down the street and he sees a guy giving a pretty fiery speech, mentions a Jamaican accent to a crowd of people. That's Roz. So Roz shows up there in the beginning. if you reread the prologue, you'll pick up on references to Bloodso, to Roz, and things like that. So all the characters start to kind of come around. Marcus Garvey, and this would also certainly work with Roz as well. Jamaican, kind of viewed as being a militant nationalist. A lot of times people will read the book and go, hey, is Roz meant to be like a Malcolm X character? And in theory, yeah, there would be some similarities. When the book gets published, though, that predates Malcolm X. So Ellison's not making any Malcolm X connections with it. But certainly, Roz would be the antithesis of like Martin Luther King, Birmingham jail, since a lot of you were using that with your AP multiple choice. He's not going to be a pacifist. He's not going to look for people to give anything to him so far as equality. He's going to take it and do whatever he needs in order to get it. So Roz and certainly the Brotherhood are going to be at odds. Why is Roz upset with Tim throughout? Like because they get a couple fight scenes. Clifton gets involved with it. What would be like Roz's complaint about Tim, Clifton, anyone who would be involved with Brotherhood?
Does any kind of think he's like helping the white people oppress the black people? Like kind of
Smart words being a little funky today.
like
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're basically helping the enemy. What does Tim call Clifton? What does Jack call Clifton? What does Clifton call Westrom? Anytime you refer to a person within the Brotherhood, the first label is brother. Roz's argument would be that they are not your real brothers. That you are being used by them, you are being manipulated by them. Roz is the exhorter. To exhort. Anyone got a definition for the verb? What's it mean to exhort? How's Roz get people to listen to him?
Yells.
He talks. And yeah, it tends to be a little bit more fiery than that. So if you exhort, you are talking, you are pleading, kind of yelling, arguing, getting people to do something. If you exhort, you're like urging someone to do something. But he goes from being the exhorter to, by the very end, he is the destroyer. But his complaint would be that Tim, Clifton, those folks are basically being traitors to their own kind by going along with the Brotherhood. The issue with the Brotherhood, and this kind of comes up certainly with the Jack's Eye scene, the Brotherhood does not have any real intentions of helping Harlem whatsoever. So essentially, Roz is getting used and manipulated where what would be a reason not to help Harlem if there is no Harlem? So the whole riot, fight scene, chaotic scene at the end would be what the Brotherhood's kind of hoping for, where Harlem simply goes away and then the Brotherhood can move on to, in its mind, bigger and better things. Keep in mind the Brotherhood is viewed as being like a communist organization, and so one of the arguments that would kind of be coming along, communism might promise to help people and bring equality, but what does it really do? Just like what happens to Harlem, destroys things. Doesn't really help anything whatsoever. But the Brotherhood certainly would be wanting to use Roz as a means, Harlem as a means, to simply just kind of get rid of the problem and have it implode upon itself. So there's not any real hope of the solution kind of coming, whether it be for civil rights with African Americans. There's the women's movement that Tim gets assigned to after a little bit, and you could probably say the same thing about that, where the Brotherhood's not really looking for any kind of equality either. But certainly Roz looks at Tim, Clifton as being traitors. When he realizes that they are not going to be helping, this is when violence simply starts to ensue. A lot of you were using violent motif throughout the TWAs that you were doing on Friday, but the hope is that Harlem simply just kind of goes away. There's not going to be an issue with it. And that realization kind of takes place when he does become Roz the Destroyer, where he can't really solve anything, so worst comes to worst, people become barbaric, brutal, and violence starts to ensue. Whether you're white, black, male, female, any kind of background, that's what ends up being humanity's natural change, of course. So what does Tim do? goes underground. What is that possession that he is most concerned about, like during the riot? Besides the spear in which he throws back at Roz and goes right through the jaw. But what does he have to keep with him no matter what? He still has the briefcase. He's going to go into burning buildings for it, protect it at all means. But again, once you have that briefcase and then you go underground, can't see. So what do? Not light bulbs, but you have to burn all the contents. And keep in mind, what are the things that get burned at this point? What? His identity. So you got the Brotherhood identity. What other paper? You get, and he's got a couple different letters at this point. We know there's the Bledsoe letter, and then what's the other letter that he has?
It's an anonymous letter from, it ends up being through Jack.
Right. The warning him that you're going too fast. It ends up being anonymous, but he sees the handwriting on the letter, and you see the Brotherhood ID. Wait a minute, handwriting looks the same. Ooh, so that's coming from Jack. You also have, what did he take from Todd? You have the Sambo doll, the paper doll. So all these ways in which he was being controlled by other people, in a literal sense gives him light, but in a figurative sense, what is he able to do? You eliminate those things, you're now free. Then underground, he's able to kind of start to get a new identity, take all his light bulbs and things like that. But certainly you have a breaking of the past, a burning of the past, a cathartic moment where you're able to simply get rid of all that baggage that he's been carrying with him all this time, and boom, it goes up in flames. And then, of course, you have a dream. Jack, why would this dream be confusing?
Because like they're saying all this weird stuff to him, and it's kind of like, I don't know, hard to interpret.
'The bridge turns into a robot? So right?
Yeah.
I need to
569. If you have a book, let's take a look. You know it's a dream because you got a whole bunch of italics. .569 is where dream starts off, but somehow the floor had now turned to sand and the darkness to light, and I lay the prisoner of a group consisting of Jack, Old Emerson. Remember, we didn't meet Old Emerson, so this is one of the trustees that the letters went to. Young Emerson was the one helping out with the paint factory. And Bledsoe, and Norton, and Roz, and the school superintendent, and another of others whom I failed to recognize, but all of whom had run me, who had now pressed around me as I lay beside a river of black water, near where an armored bridge arched sharply away to where I could not see. And I was protesting their holding me, and they were demanding that I return to them, and were annoyed with my refusal. Whom had run me, who had pressed around me, remember his first dream he has with grandfather is the opening of all those letters. Keep this boy running, where he opens up envelope after envelope after envelope. No, I said, I'm through with all your illusion lies. I'm through running. Not quite, Jack said, above the other's angry demands, but you soon will be unless you return. Refuse and we'll free you of your illusions, all right. No, thank you, I'll free myself, I said, struggling to rise from the cutting sand. But now they came forward with the knife, holding me, and I felt the bright red pain, and they took the two bloody blobs and cast them over the bridge, and out of my anguish I saw them curve up and catch beneath the apex of the curving arch of the bridge to hang there, dripping down through the sunlight into the dark red water. And while the others laughed before my pain-sharpened eyes, the whole world was slowly turning red. Matt mentioned, ooh, they cut his eyes out at the end. They don't cut his eyes out at the end. Figure what they did.
I think that's
Okay.
a good idea.
Because if they cut his eyes out, he wouldn't be able to see. He's been castrated. Awkward silence.
Yeah.
Just wanted to see what other things people would whisper. Now you're free of illusions, Jack said, pointing to my seed wasting upon the air that would reinforce the castration. How does it feel to be free of one's illusions? Not all the time, but it was not uncommon if there was a lynching taking place in the South, like in Jim Crow era, that sometimes they would also castrate the body along with the lynching. And I looked up through a pain so intense now that the air seemed to roar with the clanging of metal, hearing how does it feel to be free of illusion? And now I answered, painful and empty, as I saw a glittering butterfly circle 3 times around my blood-red parts up there beneath the bridge's high arch. But look, I said, pointing, and they looked and laughed, and suddenly seeing their satisfied faces and understanding, I gave a Bledsoe laugh, startling them, and Jack came forward curious. Why do you laugh? He said. Because at a price I now see that which I couldn't see, I said. What does he think he sees? They said, and Jack came closer, threatening, and I laughed. I'm not afraid now, I said, but if you look, you'll see it's not invisible. See what? They said. That there hang not only my generations wasting upon the water, and now the pain welled up and I could no longer see them, but what? Go on, they said. But your sun, yes, and your moon, he's crazy. Your world, I knew he was a mystic idealist, Tobit said. Still, I said, there's your universe, and that drip drop upon the water you hear is all the history you've made, all you're going to make. Now laugh, you scientists, let's hear you laugh. And high above me now, the bridge seemed to move off to where I could not see, striding like a robot, an Iron Man whose iron legs clanged doomfully as it moved, and then I struggled up, full of sorrow and pain, shouting, no, no, we must stop him. And then he woke up and had a tea away. I awoke in the blackness, fully awake now. I simply lay there as though paralyzed. I could think of nothing else to do. Later I would try to find my way out, but now I could only lie on the floor, reliving the dream. All their faces were so vivid that they seemed to stand before me beneath the spotlight. They were all up there somewhere making a mess of the world. Well, let them. I was through, and in spite of the dream, I was whole. And now I realized that I couldn't return to Mary's or to any part of my old life. I could approach it only from the outside, and I had been as invisible to Mary as I had been to the Brotherhood. No, I couldn't return to Mary's or to the campus or to the Brotherhood or home. I could only move ahead or stay here underground. So I would stay here until I was chased out. Here, at least, I could try to think things out in peace, or if not in peace, in quiet. And I would take up residence underground. The end was in the beginning. Does it all make sense now, Jack?
No.
That was the answer I was kind of expecting. And that's okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Did you say yes?
What do you think? What are the things that you pull out? I mean, certainly the people who are there, they get mentioned. We have Norton, Emerson, Bledsoe. I don't have to list everyone, but these would certainly all be people who are what to Tim? Important enemies, or at least some kind of conflict has taken place. Some you might expect to be there. Others, old Emerson, he never meets. So that might become as a little bit of a surprise. What else about him? Okay. Which, if they forced identities upon him, then he certainly lacked any true identity. And to all those people, using title of the book, then Tim was obviously invisible to them. What do they have over Tim somehow, some way? Power, control, ability to. He says, "I'm through running." So there's also some kind of essence power control taking place. Traditionally, ultimate form of, not ultimate form, I should say, but a way that power historically was done, in the 1800s would be lynchings taking place. By the castration taking place, you're limiting his ability, his seed. There's not going to be any more Tims coming around. Again, this is all figurative, it's not literally happening, but there's power over future generations. What's he mean, or any ideas, when he talks about there's your sun, there's your moon, there's your whole world wasting away? Because they have put him in a position of vulnerability, and he's laughing at them the whole entire time. This is when we start to brainstorm weird things and see what we come up with.
Well, it's kind of like saying that the only like work you're gonna make on this world is like what you do, and that's your legacy, and that's what you leave behind. It's just leave like
Okay, and if, like, in certainly, you think of pain, tears, crying, things like that. The opposite certainly going to be laughter, and sometimes people will, in sad situations, laugh because there's no other response that kind of comes to them. But if he's able to, and he's certainly in pain, but if he is able to not be controlled by them or give them the response that they expect, then what does he do to their power? You minimize it. And so I'm through running. You're not going to be able to control me the way that you thought you could. You can cause physical pain to me, but he now has, and it still could be working on it, but if he's no longer invisible, he has been able to craft his own kind of identity where I'm going to do what I want. If it means being underground, that's perfectly fine, but I'm going to be able to see who I truly am. You're not going to have the power to control who I am. I now have the power to control myself. And I would say that shift really starts to take place with that Reinhardt chapter that occurs with chapter 23 after he has his run-in with Jack. Reinhardt we never meet. But what do we know about this guy? What would be like some businesses?
He's got like a lot of different identities himself.
That's the nice way of putting it.
He works in a church, but he's also
He's a reverend. He's a pimp. He's a numbers man. And people kind of go, what's a numbers man? That's like the underground lottery before there were state lotteries. So he's a gambler. Numbers men are also, runners are going to be involved with some kind of organized crime. Doesn't mean he's working with the mafia, that he's going to be in concrete shoes or anything, but could happen, I guess. What happens when he meets various people on the street? Tim as Reinhardt with the glasses and the hat on and all that kind of stuff. Everyone.
Well, they all recognize him.
Hey!
But they all, some people wanted to fight him. The women, they were like, and then, they're just, they all recognize him.
Elena's ready to slide down the seat. Give you a little extra room. Everyone knows him, and everyone talks to him differently. He talks to parishioners. He runs into Brother Maceo. They almost get into a fight. And Maceo certainly knows Tim, but with the glasses on, he has no idea who he is. And certainly it's kind of silly to think the glasses and hat are going to make that much of a difference. He talks to police officers who aren't looking to arrest him or anything like that. He has an understanding taking place. But whoever he talks to, he's able to move back and forth between all these different identities. If he is talking to, if he's as the Reverend, but speaking to someone involved with the numbers game, that's not going to work. If he's talking to someone, using his pimp status, but he's in Reverend mode, that's not going to work. So what is he able to do? Depending on who he talks to, Reinhardt changes. He changes identities. What happens to Tim? Not before this. Like, how's that different from Reinhardt? Because you could argue Reinhardt and Tim are very much the same. They lack a true identity. But what is the major separation between Reinhardt and Tim? And he can control the way that people view him. So he deals with the same issue, but rather than Jack determining who Reinhardt is, or Roz determining who Reinhardt is, or Bledsoe, or any of the people that get listed over here in the dream, they don't determine Reinhardt. Reinhardt manipulates them and determines who he is. So he's able to take that I don't have a real true identity concept and use it to his own advantage. And that's really at the point where you start to see Tim has that rebirth scene that we mentioned before in chapter 11 with the hospital, that you have that same kind of idea taking place here with the dream. You're not going to force me into being any kind of certain person anymore. I'm through with that. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to manipulate people if need be. Now, I wouldn't say that that means Ellison would be going, everyone should manipulate everyone else and you use people to your own benefit. But one of the questions we started with like 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, how do you go from a kid getting punched in the mouth giving a graduation speech to a guy who steals 1,369 light bulbs and all the volts, power, watts that go along with it? Reinhardt, Dream, Brotherhood, all of those things would be funneling him into him crafting his own identity. Now, at the very end of the book, you do get this little concept. What might he actually happen to do? Hibernation, remember, Call Me Jack the Bear, might be over, and now I'm ready to kind of re-enter into society. Does that mean he's going to continue to manipulate? Does that mean he now knows who he is, that he can find where he truly belongs? All that stuff is kind of up for grabs. We'll kind of wait and see in our own month, I guess. But it's not a permanent residence that he would be taking place. It's a hibernation, a temporary thing.
So doesn't he, because isn't at the beginning of the book, he's like walking around, he like fights the dude or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is that him coming back up from underground?
I think when he goes underground, he still kind of he'll come and go as he pleases. So I wouldn't say him meeting the guy where he like mugged by a ghost scene is, that's not my return. I'm going to manipulate people all I can. But he can show up when he wants to, and he uses that invisibility to his benefit because you're mugged by a ghost, you have no idea who I am. But I think he still wants to find a real role, I guess, within society rather than simply being the ghost who kind of magically appears from time to time. But that's much more of a Reinhardt move that he does with that mugging in the prologue than it would be of something that he would do at any other point. And we don't know specific for dates, but you're probably looking at a 15 to 20 year period between his graduation speech and the hibernation, being over. So before he was young boy, now he's full-grown man, adult, coming back, and maybe has a little bit more of a presence than he did before.